calls up Judge Lane Carter of Tom Green County, Judge Sheree Harden of Mason County, Judge Frank Toll of McCullough County, Judge Jody Foley of San Saba, and Judge Brandon Corbin of Menard. Carter, Harden, Truel, Foley, and Corbin. All right, Lane, let's start with you. State your name, title.
Thank you, sir. Let me get this closer. My name is Lane Carter, and I serve as the county judge for Tom Green County, San Angelo being the county seat. I'd first like to thank the committee for the invitation for today's testimony. Chairman Perry, Chairman King, it's truly an honor to be in front of you today. Mr. Darby, who serves as my state rep, it's always a pleasure to see you. And a special thanks also for the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House who had to step out a little bit. Thank you for being there. And thank you for everyone that's behind us, the citizens for this community coming out for their testimony. It truly means that you believe in yourselves, you believe in the community. It's truly heartbreaking. I want to thank everyone that is on this committee here for what they are doing for our communities and progressively through this session. I know we have a long day set aside, and we have had a long day for testimony, so I'll try to be brief with hitting the critical points. But for our response and the recovery of our July 4th floods, I've provided you an extended version, if you have, for our timeline. I'll refer to this here shortly on the hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute progression of our day. We have a unique setup in Tom Green County in the city of San Angelo. This will be a prelude to the response to our community. In Tom Green County and the city of San Angelo, we have a shared EMC, Emergency Management Coordinator. We have an MOU set up with the city of San Angelo where the EMC is under the administration of the city, however, with a supplement from the county for the operational expenses. We've been blessed to have EMCs like Jerry Huffman, who is a retired TDM, Texas Department of Emergency Management District Director, and now Jose Rivera, who came from us also from TDM as the Regional Task Director. Our EMCs have taken into account the very words of Chief Nimkid from the very first hearing: plan, train, respond, recover. They have trained us through courses such as the IS 300 and 400, the IS 700 and 800. What these courses are, if you're not familiar, it's for elected officials, department heads, municipalities, governments, counties, to come together into a room and have mock scenarios, whether it be a tornado like we plan for being out in West Texas, during the fairgrounds, stock show and rodeo, which is a heavy event, 7,500 to 10,000 people at a given time. Tornado coming at night with many individuals in the area, and how do you respond if it comes to fruition and if it comes to a direct hit, which we actually saw almost come to fruition 3 times in one night during this last April stock show and rodeo. We have a command center trailer that we had the weather service on site along with our EMC, the chief of police, myself, in there watching and making sure that those red cells and those J hooks were turning north as they did every time before we made the call. We have quarterly VFD meetings, if not semi-annual. What that is where we have our volunteer fire departments come into the room at the EOC, along with the chief of police, the San Angelo Fire Department, myself, the EMC, TDM, and we discuss actions that need to be implemented, any necessary items that have taken place in the last quarter or the semi-annual part of the year. That way we can stay on top of it and make sure that everybody's on the same page. We also have dispatch there. I don't want to miss, I want to highlight that dispatch is in the room as well. However, it is not only the courses that have proven beneficial. It is our tight-knit partnerships we have with multiple agencies in our community. Many, if not all, being a member of our community COAD. which stands for Community Organizations Active in Disasters. We have a deep ongoing relationship with our nonprofits and strong coordination across all levels of government. This allows us to have solid emergency response plans and empowered leadership that can make fast decisions in the case that one leader might be unavailable at that time. Our COAD was first formed in 2021, and the trainings that we have are held annually for the IS 300 and 400 courses. With that being said, I'd like to point out now the following key times. This is a long packet if you can refer to it, but this kind of sets the stage of how our response was in Tom Green County and the city of San Angelo. At 1:38 a.m., first flood advisory was sent out by the National Weather Service. I'm going to skip down to 3:59 a.m. PD dispatch receives the first call for the water rescue. This happened with Grape Creek Volunteer Fire Department responding. Quail Valley, East Concho, and Dove Creek Volunteer Fire Departments called out also for mutual aid. At 4 a.m., Public Works started barricading the roadways due to floodways. We have known floodways in our area, nothing that has come to this fruition in the past. But like Mr. Darby said in the first hearing, we don't see 14 inches of rain annually in Tom Green County, let alone in a 12-hour period. Between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., call volumes for water rescues and assist for motorists increased dramatically. At 5:24 a.m. is when TDM DDC 10, which is Sean Baxter, Jerry Huffman's old position, called myself as Tom Green County Judge to inform of multiple water rescues currently underway north Tom Green County 2105 and Navajo Lane, and that I, as judge, was the point of contact given that our EMC was technically out of town at that moment. He informed me that we were in need of transport, possibly 2 vans containing 15 passengers each. I started rapid firing our phone calls, first to John Austin Stokes, which is to the mayor, and then to Chris Moran, Dr. Moran, which is a SAISD director. All went to voicemail, which signified that we did have a tower issue at that time. They started calling back later after a little while, which knows that it was either a tower issue or an overload at that point. I got a hold of, I also called the chief of police. It went through, but he was already responding. It went to voicemail. Once I got a hold of the Tom Green County Sheriff, I informed him that we were in need of a transport van, which he graciously offered up our jail transport bus. And if he didn't have a deputy to drive it, he was going to drive it himself. 6:10 a.m., the county and TDM established the EOC and DDEOC at the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Building out North US 87. And at 6:58 a.m., San Angelo's COAD was notified by myself and TDM Sean Baxter for assistance. 7:05 a.m., first evacuees arrive at AgriLife EOC. And we also learned at 7:30 a.m. of the response that was happening within the city of San Angelo proper. What we found out during this flood event is we had rising water north of town, and we had swift water on the east side, northeast side, progressing south of town. This is where we saw the swift water rescues happening within the city limits, Bell Street, Cohenheim, Pulliam Streets. This is where we saw a majority of the houses that have been washed away off the slabs, or if pier and beam off their footer. 7:48 a.m., after sending a text out to the mayor, we made contact with Mayor Tom Thompson and the city manager, notifying that the EOC had been set up at Texas AgriLife. The mayor arrived at 8:23 a.m., where we discussed the communication strategies that we needed to inform the citizens of where to stay away from and what the next steps were going to be if you were in an affected area. 9:10 a.m., our DRC, the Disaster Relief Center, was set up with a unified command at Paul Ann Baptist Church, where we started assisting with sheltering assistance, volunteer management, donations management, and financial donations. The evacuees from the AgriLife Center were then consolidated with the Unified Command at Paul Ann Baptist Church. At 10:30 a.m., our first press conference was held, informing what has happened, what our steps were, what we've seen, and where we were going. And by 11:40 a.m., both myself and the city mayor, Tom Thompson, had signed and declared the city of San Angelo and Tom Green County as a disaster. 10:35 p.m., an aerial assessment of the affected area was performed in the DPS helicopter by myself and the mayor, and I am very gracious for the helicopter being stationed there at Mathesfield. This was a crucial part to allow for what you'll see at the last part of this day of establishing the map of the affected area. At 1 p.m., the first donations were arriving from the COAD, which helped with hotel vouchers and gift cards.
Hey, Judge Carter, you're going to have to push it through.
Well,
I know you got it all day by the minutes, but
the significance of these times presented is the fact that the recovery stage was initiated before the response stage was over within 3 hours. What our key point is that judgment doesn't come with the initial response, it comes with your recovery. In Tom Green County, we felt it crucial to our citizens to inform the actions, next steps necessary, and resources available. Unfortunately, we did have one loss of life. We continue to keep the family in their hopes and in our thoughts and prayers, but we commend the first responders for their swift actions, because without their skills and knowledge, we could have had more loss of life. And with that, I'll leave the rest for questions
we'll have some
later.
questions probably.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Judge.
Thank you. My name is Cherie Harden, and I'm the Mason County Judge. I do want to say thank you for the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker for being here today, as well as the co-chairman and all of you members of the Joint Committee. Thank you for inviting us here to tell our stories. On behalf of Mason County, we do say that our hearts are broken for all of those who've lost loved ones and for all of those who have suffered incomprehensible devastation. Our thoughts and prayers continue for all. I did want to describe Mason County just a little bit. We are at the bottom of the lower Concho Valley area and the upper Hill Country area. Our county is about 400 square miles in size and roughly 4,000 in population. We do have the Llano River that runs through the southern part of the county, with an arm of being the James River, extending from the Llano River, and the San Saba River that flows across the northern part of our county. We are a small county as far as the budget goes as well, with about $700 in revenue, and 1.2 of that amount is dedicated to our road and bridge department, and that's pertinent for later on in my testimony. I also do want to state that the majority of our damage was incurred by flash flooding and not river flooding. Just to set up the emergency management situation in Mason County, the county judge serves as the emergency management coordinator, and I do have an assistant part-time EMC. I have taken all of the required ICS courses, and my assistant has completed the ICS courses up to the 300 and 400 level class, but is scheduled to take those the second week in August. We have a basic emergency management plan, and we are currently in process of converting our annexes to the ESFs, or the emergency support functions. Flash flooding and river flooding are identified in the plans as hazards for Mason County, with impact on public health and safety, and property being identified as major. We assume that it is possible for a disaster to occur at any time, and we have put in place communication methods to warn the public, noting that some emergency situations occur with little or no warning. The communication platforms that Mason County currently use are the Sheriff's app, Facebook. We do have city sirens. We utilize our websites, and we do utilize Code Red, saved for imminent or level 1 threats. On July 3rd, I received a call from District Chief Baxter from Tatum Region 7, who wanted to make sure that I was aware of potential rain that could cause flash flooding due to already saturated grounds from the Memorial Day rains. Periodically throughout the evening, the Sheriff's app pushed out notifications of flash flood watches for Mason County, as National Weather Service alerts are automatically pushed out on the Sheriff's app. Around 3 a.m. on July 4th, the Sheriff's app pushed out a flash flood warning for Mason County. This immediately caught my attention, as throughout the evening leading up to 3 a.m., flash flood watches were being dispatched, but this turned into flash flood warnings. I immediately called dispatch and asked if anyone had reported any flooding. One driver had called in and stated that there was water running over Wrench Road 1222, which is north of the city of Mason. TxDOT had been notified, and they were already out starting to put barricades on roads that were impassable. The Mason County Sheriff was notified. I notified the Sheriff, and a message was pushed out on the Sheriff's app to warn drivers of road closures and to not drive across water. Notices were also put out on the EMC Facebook page. Throughout the day, the Sheriff and the Assistant EMC monitored road conditions in low water crossings. Barricades and cones were put out in the city and county where roads were impassable. The Assistant EMC constantly monitored river and creek stages, and the Sheriff kept in contact with the RV park owners. We do have one open RV park on the Llano River. A second has been developed but is not occupied currently. The river this is the Llano River, it did end up cresting, but not as high as the 2018 flood. For the most part, people stayed home, which we heard earlier. That's what we're told to push out, is stay home unless you have to be out, and if you have to be out, don't cross running water. There was no need for evacuations or rescues, and thankfully there were no EMS calls during that day. On July 5th, I declared a local disaster and called an emergency management team meeting to discuss the emergency response plan. Our county roads were washed out, some literally washed away. They were all highly saturated, and most were covered in water. We secured necessary equipment that would allow emergency responders to access patients down these roads should there be 911 calls. A local community building was made available for anyone needing shelter. That shelter was not utilized. However, there were few houses that received flood damages. Emergency road repairs were made to make sure that everyone could get to a highway, even if by four-wheel drive only. At this point, there was an incredible effort made by our neighbors out there helping each other try to find a way to make sure that everyone could get to a highway and that our emergency responders could get to them in the event that someone needed emergency services. It was reported that the northwest part of the county received 23 inches of rain. 25 inches a year in Mason is what's typical. A week later, on July 13th, the second wave of rain came fast and furious, and a swiftwater boat team was positioned in Mason, but left only a few hours to go assist in the San Saba area. The rain event dropped another 5 inches of rain across the county, and emergency repair work that had been done the previous week was now washed away again. Post-event or recovery, several days later, the roads were passable by four-wheel drive only, and we began the process of PSTAT assessments. TDM dispatched multiple employees to our county, and over a week's time, we finished roads assessments. 250 PSTAT surveys were submitted, indicating over $40 million worth of county road damage. Concho Valley Council of Government sent employees to Mason to assist with ISTAT surveys. Today, 30 surveys have been submitted, and though individual assistance has not been granted to Mason County, citizens have sustained substantial damage to property, and many have sustained agricultural losses, causing extreme economic loss. Recovery will be long and costly for all, and any considerations for immediate relief funding from our great state would be sincerely appreciated. I'm here to ask you to please help us, as county officials, help our people. I'll be happy to take any questions, and I will too provide a copy of my testimony.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Frank Trull.
Pull that up close and talk loud.
I talk pretty softly, so it might
we'll
be a
pull it
little
up
bit of
really close then.
little bit of a challenge. But my name is Frank Trull. I'm the McCulloch County Judge. I have been since 2021. We have a little bit different situation compared to most as far as the flooding went. Thank goodness it wasn't on the higher level of things. It was on the lower level. We still had quite a bit of damage both to individual properties and to our county roads, some of our county buildings as well, such as our courthouse. The roof suffered damage, a lot of water leaks and so forth. That's kind of been undetermined yet as far as what insurance will or won't cover. I'll give a brief description of some of the actions taken in response to the flood. The morning of July 3rd, I received calls from Sean Baxter, who's the Texas Division of Emergency Management District 10 Chief, and Guy Duncan, who is the Tatum Section Chief. Baxter and Duncan advised me that forecasted weather in our area could result in up to 12 inches of rainfall throughout July the 4th. Truly thankful for those two gentlemen's briefing and feel like their attention provided several hours of prior notice before the inclement weather arrived. After speaking with Chief Baxter, I received a flood watch warning from the National Weather Service that indicated flooding could be possible in McCulloch County from 1:30 that day on the 3rd through July the 4th. I sent out an emergency notice through TextMyGov. That's what we use. It's probably similar to Code Red. It's not a reverse 911, but it's a system that I can send out notices. And then beginning at 1:37 a.m. on the 4th, McCulloch County Dispatch began receiving calls of stranded motorists due to the floodwaters. At 2:02 a.m., there were calls requesting emergency assistance due to some of the individuals' homes flooding. According to the National Weather Service, San Angelo at 4 a.m., the riverbank stage, and that's going to be the San Saba River, which is south of Brady, measured 5.9 feet. The bank full, just to give you an idea, is 16 feet. About 5:30 a.m., the radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rainfall. Across that warned area, between 1.5 and 2.5 inches of rainfall had fallen. Additional rainfall was expected of 1 to 2 inches more, and that's when the indicator for flash floodings were imminent. About an hour later, the National Weather Service San Angelo changed the forecast from minor flooding to major flooding, and the riverbank stage measured 17.6 feet. It took 2.5 hours, and the river rose 11.7 feet. About 7 a.m., I spoke with dispatch to see what the call volume was. They advised that there had only been a few calls and that 2 families or individuals had been displaced from their homes. Some of the other calls were related to the stranded motorists that I spoke about previously. I arrived at the courthouse about 8 a.m., and that's where I observed all of the water leaks throughout the courthouse. Shortly after that, there was a bulletin from the National Weather Service that the EIS activation was requested for flash flood warnings. About 11 a.m. that morning, I received a call from the National Weather Service San Angelo requesting me to travel to that San Saba River Bridge because they did not think that the LCRA river gauges were working properly. Upon arrival at the bridge, I observed the river to be several yards out of its banks and the lower park area was submerged. The river was about 6 feet from the bottom of the bridge, and I'd estimate that the bottom of the bridge being about 30 feet in height. Advised actually the LCRA staff was there, and they had advised me that the water had swept away the monitoring equipment and they were making those repairs. A couple hours later, the river stage was 29.7 feet, and the flood stage, activation stage, is actually at 18 feet. Part of that notice from the National Weather Service made reference to this crest compares to a previous crest of 29.1 feet back in July of 1938. In those past 5 hours, the river had rose an additional 12 feet. An hour later, there was a call requesting emergency assistance because a low water crossing had become impassable, and this was located just north of that river bridge where I was at. There were a group of people at a vacation home, and the road had washed out where they couldn't get back out onto the main highway. Our 2 local volunteer fire departments and our Precinct 2 county commissioner responded, and they actually had to use a very large wheel loader to transport those folks across the water. There were other flood-related calls, but those were the only 2 call sheets that I had to make reference to. Throughout the day, our county commissioners were actively monitoring the roads. Some of the roads and bridges had to be closed for several days due to the high water and deterioration. In the days following July 4th, calls came in from individuals requesting assistance with flood damage such as surface water penetrating their homes, roof leaks, private ranch roads destroyed, fence and water gap damages. And again, like everybody that has spoke today, they made reference to all the years that they had been in the area. They'd never seen flooding like what had occurred. Additional rains continued to fall. On July the 13th, the LCRA flood gauge at that same river I spoke of measured about 11 feet, which again, that's 5 feet lower than the bank being full. But however, there's a secondary bridge in the community of Voca, and that bridge had water lapping over the top of it. The reason why that's significant is it's about a 2-mile stretch between those 2 bridges. So all the tributaries between the main bridge and that secondary bridge were flowing so much water, we had no knowledge. There's no gauges in those areas. So I usually look at that gauge at the San Saba River Bridge crossing on 87, and I'm thinking it's fine because it hadn't even met the bank full yet. So it's really important we go back to as many gauges as we can get to monitor these rivers where we can make determinations such as evacuations downstream. There's several coordinated efforts for our local folks, for the ones that were displaced. Salvation Army, American Red Cross, our local McCullough County Resource Center. Our city manager coordinated a flood victim assistance event and helped those folks get their ISTATs done with the help of the Concho Valley Council of Governments as well. We had a nice group of people there helping those victims. As of to date, there have been 155 individuals in McCullough County who've completed those surveys, including 3 properties that are probably total losses, 27 properties with major damage, 95 properties with minor, and 30 properties described as affected. In close, just listening to everything, I've been here with y'all the whole time. One thing that I would like you to think about is possibly, and a state position for an emergency management coordinator in our counties, or maybe a combination in our smaller counties, like, you know, the three of us here, where we don't have a huge population. I think, like you talk about, like you spoke of, all the training, it's so important that you have similar people that are making a lot of these decisions.